Back in January I made a video called Dark Souls in 2024. It was one I was a little apprehensive about recording because I've never been any good at Souls games. Despite this, things actually went fairly well. I was able to beat the Asylum Demon relatively easily on my first attempt, and managed to make my way through most of Undead Burg without dying at all. In fact, it wasn't until the very end of the video that I received my first death, when I descended a tower and met this heavily armoured fella. All in all, I did far better than I ever expected, which led me to wondering, could I actually become good at a Souls game? Because I'm a YouTuber through and through, rather than just play this game purely for my own enjoyment, I decided I needed to make a video on the whole process. Initially this was going to be, I spent 100 hours in Dark Souls, but I soon realised that this was stupid, as most people beat the game in about a third of that time. I have spent over 100 hours in plenty of games, but only when they've really called to me. Instead I decided that I tried to make this video, one where I see if I can get good at Dark Souls. After editing my initial video, I returned to the game and did a bit more exploring of the Undead Burg, in order to try and familiarise myself a little with the controls. While getting my practice in, I come across this friendly shopkeeper, who let me know of the dangers surrounding this area.
Things are getting treacherous in these parts. A horrible goat demon has moved in below, and up above there's that humongous drake, and a bull demon too. If you stick around this place, it might end up being your grave.
As a full-blown cheapskate, I obviously don't buy anything, and I am a little miffed to learn that I can't sell stuff either, meaning my inventory is going to end up filled with garbage items that I will never drop. This isn't a major concern though, so I go back to practice, clearing through more of the undead. One point I've often heard from Dark Souls players is that every death should teach you a lesson, and I think this death teaches me not to jump off of tall buildings. Good teaching, Dark Souls. All this practice has actually helped me out though, as I'm able to reach level 11 and give you all an idea of the kind of character that I'm running. If you're looking at those stats and thinking, a terrible one, you may well be right. So for some stupid reason, I convinced myself that I shouldn't look up any information while on this journey. I wanted to go through the game blind, which I don't think is how most players complete these sorts of games. Instead, I'm going to have no idea what kind of build I'm running, where good equipment is, or even where I'm supposed to go next. This does mean I can claim all the glory, but it also means all dumb decisions are solely on me. For a while I continue my level grinding, wanting to make sure I'm strong enough to explore whatever comes next. I've clearly got quite good at killing the zombies in the Undead Burg, as I'm now able to reach my first new area with barely a scratch on my body. Now while I'm not looking up any information, I have seen some gameplay from Dark Souls in the past, and this bridge looks mighty familiar, so I'm on full guard. After dispatching the pair that were atop the tower, I take a moment to enjoy the view, before proceeding with caution. Now that is one big beastie. Fortunately I've already dealt with a big monster before, and the main lesson I learnt from my first boss fight was that drop attacks are really strong. Considering we have a tower right here, I use it to maximum advantage, landing not one, not two, but 3 drop attacks on the Taurus Demon. And with just a couple more swings, I achieve victory. That's the first 2 bosses defeated on my first attempt. I may not be willing to claim I'm good at the game at this stage, but I'm certainly not doing badly either. Wanting to ensure I get to use all those lovely souls, I do make a quick run back to the bonfire which I know is safe to reach, and level up again. I still don't exactly know what I need to be putting points into, but I like carry weight, so endurance seems good enough. With fewer souls left to lose if I die, I then set forth, and am rewarded by getting my butt set alight by Dragonfire. That may burn right now, but I'm sure I'll make use of it later on. Clearly the game knows it needs to make things up to players after that, and the reward is a mighty one. This is Knight Solaire, and he is such a beloved character that even I know about him.
Ah, hello. You don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that I am undead, I have come to this great land, the birthplace of Lord Gwyn, to seek my very own son.
After agreeing to help him with some tasks I don't fully understand, I take some time to chill out, and we just watch the beams of sunlight together. Sadly I can't stay here forever though, and need to find where I'm supposed to go next. The one door I can see appears to be locked, so my only option seems to be moving towards the big red drake which burnt me earlier. Despite my fears, the creature decides not to attack this time, and I'm left to deal with more of the undead. While it may appear friendly right now, I'm not exactly buying it. So rather than approach, I take the stairs down to see what I can find. And what I find is my first shortcut. By kicking this ladder, I now can reach my main bonfire nice and easily. I'm somewhat aware of the Dark Souls maps being quite well designed so that a lot of places lead to one another, and I've got to give props on the smart level design helping to make it so that you don't really need fast travel to get around. And from here I'm now able to work out where to go next, which appears to be under the bridge. Considering my last death was from falling, I play things real cautious here, and I'm proud to say I don't plummet to my death. This guy does though. Moving ever onward, I have now made it to the Undead Parish. This game so far has been very undead heavy. Don't worry though, Dark Souls hears my thoughts and throws a big heavily armoured knight at me to provide some enemy variety. Thanks Dark Souls, how kind of you. In my rush to return to the night and reclaim my souls, I get poisoned by some rats, and boy oh boy does poison last a long time. It soon becomes clear that I cannot possibly survive, so rather than trying to preserve my life, I figure I should just scout ahead. With some fancy dodging, I'm able to not get hit too much, pick up an item, and charge through to the next room to have a look around. Considering these big black knights are now appearing, I decide to try and take on the one who resides in the Undead Burg. If nothing else, he should prove good practice, and I'd rather fight one of these guys in a location I'm familiar with. I am quite proud of myself for my somewhat scientific approach to fighting this guy. Rather than just rushing in and trying to get the kill, I see what his moves are, how much damage they do, how much I can hurt him, and how far he'll follow me if I run away crying. Turns out it's quite far, and in order to not die I have to use the opening granted by a back attack to return to the bonfire. And here I learn another lesson, which is that living enemies don't reset and will remain hostile while you're resting. I try to use my boss fight tactic of drop attacks to beat the knight, but things don't quite pan out that way. On the bright side, I don't have far to travel to pick up my lost souls. It's at this point I decide that I need to do some serious level grinding. My actual skill doesn't seem to be too terrible, as I can block and dodge relatively well. If I can become a bit stronger, then maybe I'll actually be able to win my fights a little bit easier. So I give something a try. That Drake from earlier seems to burn the bridge whenever I set foot on it, and every time it does so when the enemies are there, I get 555 souls. Now that the ladder has descended, it only takes a minute to go from bonfire to bridge, back down to bonfire, meaning I have a repeatable way to earn as many souls as I like. I'm not sure exactly how long I spent doing this, but I do know I watched some fairly lengthy YouTube videos during these sessions, and my next recording has me hoarding over 30,000 souls, and levelling all the way from 20 to 28. Putting all the points into Vitality means I now have a health bar of an actual decent size. Off camera I do even more of this levelling, mostly so that I don't have to walk around with excess souls, and then it's back to the Undead Parish. There's this giant armoured boar who I'd like to try and take down. First though, there's a few undead to handle, and my sloppy fighting doesn't give much hope for the upcoming battle. Nevertheless, I give things a try. If nothing else, I should learn something about the boar, like the fact it takes virtually no damage when you hit the armour. Clearly the resident pervert designed this enemy, because to hurt it, you need to shove your sword up its butthole.
Oh my!
Once I figured this out, things did become quite easy though, and the boar is vanquished. This is also one of the enemies in game that don't respawn when you rest at a bonfire, so I never have to commit such a heinous act again. With the piggy defeated, I get to keep pushing forward, steadily making my way through the hordes of zombies. For a little change of pace, I even get to do some precision movement in order to reach this item. Getting that item will be my last victory for a while though, as the next area has these rapier wielding knights who perform much better than me in these narrow hallways. As I'm once again going through the motions of clearing out a location I've dealt with before, I get the scary surprise that equipment degrades with use. Seems my sword is pretty much busted, so I need to equip something else. Fortunately, I picked up this Balder side sword somewhere, and while it is a little strange to wield at first, I do quite like the added length of it. As it turns out, this pointy sword is the perfect thing to defeat those rapier knights. And with him dead, I can now see what it was he was guarding. Considering I just switched out my sword, seems like a good time to switch my shield too. But sadly it weighs too much and I'm now slowed down a bunch while rolling, which is something I cannot accept. Even with all those points put into endurance, I still have to wear only the lightest of items. I do figure out that I have to keep my equip load at under a quarter of the total, which really doesn't provide me with much wiggle room going forward. Still, I make what few changes to equipment I can, and then it's back to pushing through the Undead Parish, which once again, doesn't go too well. After getting stuck in the corner with these two, I decide that fighting isn't my thing this day, and just sprint away from it all. And as luck would have it, I manage to run all the way to a bonfire. Resting here seems to do the trick and stop my pursuers, leaving me free to investigate the sound coming from below.
Well, you must be a new arrival. I'm Andre of Astora. If you require smithing, then speak to me.
This is Andre the Blacksmith. He's going to be able to repair my busted equipment, and even reinforce the odd item here and there. The repairs only cost souls, which I can come across easily, but reinforcing will require Titanite shards, which I don't have a reliable way to obtain. As such, the only thing I reinforce at this stage is my armour, because I'm pretty confident I'll be using it a while longer. It turns out this area is home to more than one friendly NPC, as I head outside and discover the Onion Knight, or as he calls himself,
I am Siegmeyer of Katarina.
At this point I have now met all of the Dark Souls NPCs that I was previously aware of, which I'm counting as a victory of its own. Previously I was someone who hadn't really played enough Dark Souls to ever talk about it, but now I can proudly say I've met both Solaire and the Onion Knight. This might seem like an odd thing to be proud of, but to me I think this is just as important as having beat a boss. Sadly my friendly vibes don't rub off on others, as the next place I go is home to this hulking great demon. This thing doesn't have a boss's health bar, but it's tankier than both bosses I face combined. There is no way I'm cutting through its tough hide, so I don't bother, instead just running outside. This area is Darkroot Garden, and I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here. Seeing as I wasn't strong enough to defeat the monster guarding this location, my own personal logic says this is somewhere to come back to later. But I only have 62 souls, so I'm not really all that worried about dying. I may as well have a little scout ahead and see what awaits in the future. Hell, I might even be able to pick up an extra item or two on the way. And with that as my logic, I ran all the way through Darkroot Garden, and down into Darkroot Basin. Here I spot a Twinkling Turtle, which is an enemy I can actually defeat. A little further down I also find a set of leather armour, but it seems significantly worse than what I'm already wearing. For some strange reason all the enemies seem to have left me alone. At first this is concerning, but soon a knight shows up to put my mind at ease. While I may not be strong enough to fight this guy, I am nimble enough to dodge his attacks, letting me pick up the Grass Crest Shield. I don't realise it at this point, but this may be the smartest thing I do in the entire run. My flight is a success, and I actually make it to a bonfire. At first it's tempting to rest here, but I don't want to be trapped in somewhere that's way too high a level for me, and then try and have to run back to somewhere safe. Instead I just move on and take this handy lift. The lift which deposits me at the Valley of Drakes. I've only dealt with one Drake so far, and that experience was enough to let me know I don't stand a chance. Even though I'm someone who has historically struggled with third-person movement, playing Dark Souls has made me far better at controlling a character from this sort of camera angle, and I'm able to walk my way across narrow paths without falling to my death. The path then leads me to this dragon corpse, which has loot around it. People always talk about how cruel Souls games are, but look at this benevolent reward. Oh wait, the dragon is a zombie and wants to kill me. Yeah, I guess I should have expected that. Still, I was able to get all the items and safely run away, finding yet another lift, this one taking me to the New Londo ruins. Here there are actual enemies that I'm able to defeat. After all that running, I can finally engage in some combat, against harmless undead who never even take a swing at me. Maybe I'm the bad guy after all. The next area looks super creepy, so rather than head into it, I take this lift, and am met with some familiar music. I am back at Firelink Shrine. Yeah, turns out my mad scouting run not only netted me a handful of items, but is also one I was able to survive. Back at base, I do decide to check out my new gear, but sadly nothing I have can be effectively wielded at present. While it's all well and good having made it safely to Firelink Shrine, I don't actually want to be here. So I take the lift back down to the ruins and do a little more exploring. The ghostly looking water village is a bit creepy for my tastes, so I head back into the valley to find somewhere friendlier. Blighttown. Now that sounds much friendlier. Okay, I am actually somewhat aware of this place, because even within Dark Souls it's regarded as a horrible location where no one wants to go. I figure, hey, if this is where I die, this is where I die. But despite this being possibly the worst regarded place in the game, I seem to have an easy time surviving. I'm dodging attacks with next to no effort, and my only real problem is that I'm lost. I took all these ladders down, expecting it to lead somewhere, but can't seem to find where to head next. These wheels do seem to have platforms I can stand on though. Maybe they'll lead me to the next location. Oops. Off camera, I then spent a fair bit of time working out where it was I'm supposed to go next. And as it so happens, it was back to the Undead Parish. And there's also a lift from here to Firelink Shrine, so it seems like that whole trip to Blighttown was entirely unnecessary. At the parish, I find this weird dancing wizard who seems to be powering up all the nearby enemies. Using the good old drop attack, I'm able to defeat him, and it seems that he's another enemy who doesn't respawn, so that's an actual solid bit of progress there. I also picked up a fire soul thing in the church, which means I can visit Weird Hole Lady and reinforce my Estus flasks. Look, even after playing several hours of the game, I still don't understand what's going on. It's one thing to get good at playing the game, it's another entirely to actually have a clue as to what's happening. Because I don't understand what's happening, I free this prisoner without hesitation, which I'm sure was the right thing to do.
I am free. Now, I can get back to work.
Eventually I end up at a new location, but it's not good. I may not know this game well, but if you put me on a giant roof with a bunch of gargoyle statues, I'm gonna figure out what's happening. It's time for our next boss fight, and watching this back, I am genuinely proud of myself. This is my very first time facing a new enemy, and I'm playing really smart. I take the time to see what different moves I'm facing, get an eye on the reach of my opponent's weapon, and only strike when I have a clear opening. And best of all, I don't stupidly roll off the roof at any point. Things are going so well that I easily knock the gargoyle down to half health. And then a second one shows up. One boss was fine. I had that down. But two, not a chance. Now I'm having to time my moves to avoid two separate attacks happening out of sync with each other. There's a flame breath move all of a sudden, and I still have to make sure I don't dive off the rooftop. And I'm sad to say that this is the first of the boss fights that I don't complete on my first attempt. My final sliver of health is charred away, and I respawn back at Firelink Shrine. I hadn't been having a great day when I recorded this, and a first try win would have really turned things around. Instead, dying on this fight just made things a little bit worse. Still, I figured I should go back and try again. The whole process pretty much went the same as last time. The one-on-one with the gargoyle was nice and straightforward. If it was just the one I was facing, then I'd have it down no problems. But with the pair of them, they're able to run rings around me, and I once again go down to the flame breath. And that sudden stop right there is my first rage quit out of Dark Souls. Rather than jump straight back in, I gave myself a couple of days to cool off and get in a better headspace. Once I did return, I decided to use this humanity stuff I keep on ending up with, thinking it might help me out in some way. Item descriptions aren't always super helpful in this game, but I figure restoring humanity and reversing hollowing has got to do something good. Because it has been a little while since my last play session, I decide not to go straight back to the boss fight. Instead, I take a familiar path in order to reacclimatise myself to the controls. And while I'm in the area, figure I may as well do some more levelling. Once I've spent my souls and become a little stronger, I head back to the tower to try my luck with the gargoyles again. But this time, things seem a little different. When I climb to the top, there's now a strange marking on the floor, which seems to show an apparition of Knight Solaire. I touch the summon sign, and I now have a buddy to join me. You hear that, gargoyles? You got such a kick out of outnumbering me, but how well can you do when the odds are even? As it turns out, they don't do so well. Solaire and I both focus fire on the initial creature, meaning things quickly turn to our favour. Solaire in fact proves so strong that I'm even able to leave him alone to finish off the second of the pair with ease. I'm guessing the summon appeared because of the whole hollow thing? Seems like I could have made that fight a lot easier from the beginning if I had known what I was doing. I'm no fool, so I stay cautious as I climb the tower, but it seems there's no more enemies around, allowing me to ring the bell. I have no idea why I did that, but hey, I got an achievement, so I'm happy. With the bell rung, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to head to next. I'm somewhat aware that there's another bell I need to ring, but I have no clue where it could be. Being uncertain of where to head, I decide I should at least start by repairing my gear, as the last thing I need is something breaking mid-fight. While I'm in the area, I have another explorer around, but don't find much of anything new. I am able to open up another shortcut, but it's not one which will seem to help me much. With no other routes known to me, I figure I should have another go at fighting that big basement demon. Maybe this humanity hollowing thing is the secret to beating it. But no, the beast is as tough as ever. I'm able to dance around it, but actually slaying it seems far out of my leagues. I spend a couple of minutes as its dance partner before electing to leave. I may not be able to kill it, but at least I can ensure it doesn't kill me either. Because of my uncertainty, I decide to go somewhere I attempted back in my original video. Just off to the side of Firelink Shrine is this graveyard filled with skeletons. They were clearly too strong for me at the start of the game, but maybe now I can deal enough damage to handle them. They do still seem a fair bit tougher than I'd expect, but maybe this is just what the game is going to be like now. Can't say I'm a big fan of enemies with needlessly huge health pools, but I've managed to get pretty good at parrying, which seems to deal with them well enough. The graveyard has a fair few items for me to grab, along with plenty more skellies to fight through. Even with my top tier parrying, this whole process proves fairly slow going, and things get even worse once one of the giant skeletons form. The regular ones were bad enough, but now I've got to handle one who damages me even through my shield. Fighting this single enemy took me 2.5 minutes, and my reward for doing so is a spear, which I know I won't use. I do then get the Zweihander, which I'm aware is a good weapon, but in reaching it, another giant skeleton appears. I'm tired of fighting this lot, so just run about the place, looking for any more items which I can loot. Once I've grabbed all the goodies, I then find a staircase which leads me down to the catacombs. Now there's a sight which makes a graveyard full of skeletons positively appealing. As the skeletons are guarding the way back up, I figure I've no choice but to delve deeper. But what I find down here are even more skeletons, now with the added detriment of no sunlight. A friendly pyromancer hears my grumbles for light, and shows kindness by lighting me up. I think fire may have killed me more than anything else in the entire game. Respawning back at the shrine, I get to look through my new equipment. Bad news though, the Zweihander is a strength weapon, and I'm a dexterity-based character, meaning I can't really use it effectively. I'm not sure what the good dex weapons in this game are, but I'd sure love to find one soon. Because I'm unable to find somewhere new to go, I figured that maybe I'm just supposed to be stronger than I currently am, and decide to go back to the Drake leveling strategy. It's possible that fire has been used to kill me the most, but it's near certain that I've used fire to kill more enemies than anything else. After a while of doing this, I then realise that I can also use all of these soul items to just directly give me souls too. By using them, I'm able to go from level 38 to 44. I put all the points into both strength and dexterity, because I badly need a damage boost. I have no idea what sort of levels players are supposed to be at different points in the game, so feel free to let me know in the comments how badly underleveled or ridiculously overleveled I've been throughout this video. Now that I'm a fair bit stronger, I figure it's time to see if I can finally defeat one of those Black Knights. Much like last time though, he follows me all the way back to the bonfire. This time, I'm tough enough to survive several of his attacks, and once I've regained my composure, I'm able to parry his blows and defeat him. Pretty sure that's him gone for good. I'm spending a fair bit of my time retreading my steps, searching for a place I missed before. During this, I make sure to pay a quick visit to Solaire.
Oh, hello there. I will stay behind to gaze at the sun. The sun is a wondrous body, like a magnificent father. If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
And it's here that I spot the door which I couldn't open before, because it was locked. This time though, I have the key. Yeah, this basement key I got from a random corpse turns out to open a door near the top of a tower. I think it's understandable that I got a little lost with where I was supposed to go. But now that I found where it is the game progresses, I do get to open a shortcut so that I can make my future journeys a little bit shorter. Although I will have to dodge raining firebombs every time I go that way. Still, I finally made some progress, and now have made it to the lower section of the Undead Burg. There's a few doggos down here and a couple of groups of zombies, but otherwise all seems quiet. I've come across a couple of doors in the past which break when attacked, so start trying to stab my way through the doors when this happens. There's an enemy behind that door, and behind some of the other ones too. This absolutely reeks of an ambush, but as luck would have it, I'm one step ahead of these guys. When they break out and try and spring the trap, not only am I expecting it, but they're already wounded. Fortunately, I also know the standard tactics for dealing with an ambush, primary among them being to take the enemy away from their chosen zone of attack and try and move towards territory that you're more familiar with. I didn't learn that for Dark Souls, but I'm happy to report that it's effective here too. I check the rooms that the ambushes came from and find some cool looking thief armour. Once again, it's worse than my standard gear, but searching through my equipment does prompt me to try out the Grass Crest Shield. This is an item which boosts stamina recovery, which might just be the most important thing in the entire game. Unfortunately, I am just barely too heavy with the shield equipped to roll quickly. A single point more endurance and I'll be fine, but I need more souls for that. I come across one of those scary mist doors, but instead of going through and potentially facing a new boss, I decide I want to explore the other routes first. One of them leads me to this undead shopkeeper who sells status curing items. Seems like a good investment, so I decide to spend all my souls on this stuff so that I don't end up wasting them. And this section right here is something that I absolutely detest. All it is a sewer path back to the start of the Undead Burg, but I cannot stand the feeling of being there. I don't like cramped spaces, I don't like damp spaces, and I don't particularly like creepy spaces. This is all three combined, and I am not a fan. After resting up again at the old reliable bonfire, I make my way back to the lower Undead Burg, and to the smoke door I mentioned earlier. Through it is the mighty Capra Demon, who immediately smashes me. I am a good Dark Souls player at this point though. I learned from the Gargoyle fight that the key thing to do when facing multiple enemies is to thin the herd. I prioritise the two dogs supporting the demon, and then it's time for a one-on-one fight. Unfortunately, this area is a little cramped, which leads to me struggling a bit with dodging attacks while keeping the camera under control. I hold firm for a while though, but eventually I run out of Estus flasks, and then the Capra Demon unleashes a torrent of attacks. Despite this loss, I don't think there was anything wrong with my strategy, so head right back to try and repeat the fight again. And the second time around, things work out much better. The demon starts behaving a tad more predictably, and this is all the opening I require to chip away at its health until I can land the finishing blow. From that fight, I get the key to the depths, and somewhat uncharacteristically for me, I actually find the correct door straight away. I am aware that I have a fair few souls on me and 0 Estus left, so I head into the depths themselves with utmost caution, hoping to find an early bonfire or shortcut to somewhere familiar. Neither of these prove to be the case though, so I play it safe and head back to rest and level up before going further. By putting that extra point into endurance, I'm now able to use the Grass Crest Shield, and just look at how fast my stamina comes back. I could have really used that buff earlier, but it's good to have it now. Honestly, having made it to the point where my equipment feels somewhat special is a victory in and of itself to me. But now it's time to go back to the depths. I do a good job fighting my way through the initial enemies. Honestly, at this point I wasn't actually finding the game challenging anymore. It wasn't that fights weren't difficult, but I knew how to win, and it really just became a case of timing dodges and attacks well. If I keep my timing, then I win the fight. If I make a mistake in tempo or a misclick, then I take damage. With that said, it was time for me to slog my way through the depths, which proved to be an incredibly unpleasant experience. I told you all how much I disliked that one sewer tunnel I had to briefly walk through. Well, the depths is like that, but a million times worse. I'm constantly in ankle-deep water, the paths are barely broad enough for my shoulders, and there's disgusting looking monsters trying to ambush me from every conceivable angle. I was not having fun with the game at this point. Even watching the footage back to write this video, I've got an unpleasant feeling in the pit of my stomach. On the one hand, that's great level and art design. On the other hand, I'm having a terrible time. Despite this, I keep pushing forward and make it to the first bonfire, without hardly taking any damage and not having used a single flask. This might be the section of the game I'm progressing through with the most ease, but it's still easily my least favourite. Still, I keep going, stopping briefly to say hi to this giant rat. Hello! This place has turned into a maze, with rats trying to lead me to untold dangers. I'm still managing to use my skills to make it through okay. That is until I fall down this hole and start getting attacked by basilisks. Somehow the depths manage to get even worse. Despite feeling entirely disgusted and even a little bit scared, I manage to get around the basilisk just fine. I do what I'm supposed to do to survive, and the game rewards me by my healing no longer working. I'm not sure if this is an intended mechanic or if something just went wrong while I was playing, but you can see me trying to mess around with the controls and get my healing working, and nothing happens. Instead I'm left to just have to try and run away, but but my health is chipped down by rats, who block me in and kill me. I don't think it will come as a surprise to learn that I rage quit the game for a second time here. And at that point I was done. I thought to myself, why am I still playing? And I didn't have a reason. Beating the Capra Demon and getting to use the Gross Crest Shield was the last time I enjoyed the game. It had stopped feeling like a skill-based challenge, and now was really just a case of grinding levels and trying to improve equipment. I had stopped having fun, in no way helped by how much the depths rubbed me up the wrong way. The only reason I really had left to keep on playing was for the video. But at this point, my Dark Souls in 2024 video had been out for a while, and was doing poorly. I've ended up having to delay making this video for a few weeks, and it's still the case that Dark Souls in 2024 hasn't reached even a single 1,000 views yet. Even my Redfall video has surpassed 1,000 views at this point, and that game can't even get 1,000 people to play it. If my previous Dark Souls video wasn't going to get watched, I knew there wasn't much chance for this one. I figure there'll probably be a few hundred of you who click on the video at all, and given the length of it, only a small handful of people who make it to this point. But that does mean those of you who have made it this far are probably some of the biggest fans of my content and the channel as a whole, so I don't want to leave you on a downer of an ending. Instead, I decided I would boot up the game one last time. In my original video, I died to that heavily armoured guy with a big hammer. I'm now tougher, stronger, and much, much better at the game. It's time to go back and get payback. I fight my way through the Undead Burg, and get ready to battle Hammerboy. He may be strong, but I'm fast, and get a backstab on him. A backstab that does worryingly little damage. Just how much health does this guy have? And oh god, the hammer sure does pack a punch. And I'm dead again. You know what? Live and let live, I say. So that was my journey with Dark Souls. I'll leave it up to you to decide if I've got good or not. What I can say for myself is that I've gone from someone who found these games to be a truly daunting experience, to someone who is no longer troubled by the challenge of them. They're not really to my taste, but at least I now know it's not a case of me lacking the skills to take them on. I've done my time in a Souls game, and feel that I can hold my head up high. If you ended up enjoying this video, please do leave a like. If you enjoy this style of content, maybe check out my Games in Year playlist, as the editing is fairly similar to this, although the episodes are a fair whack shorter. Support me on Patreon if you want to help fund videos like these, and as always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.